Hey guys, welcome to another video. Today we've got an interesting topic. I really want to help you answer the question of whether you really love art or not. Because if you're at all like me, I've asked this question to myself many times and it has pained me for so much of my art career. So I'm really excited to help you answer this today. So, a lot of very successful artists, in all of their interviews and anything that I read about them, they really talk about how much they love what they do. Like they really love art, and it sounds like it's really the key to their success, right? So essentially, this question of do you love art or not, it's kind of like answering, should you even bother pursuing it? Because if you don't love it, like you're never going to be successful, or like why would you pursue it anyway if you don't love it? So yeah, this is a pretty daunting question, right? And it's, like I said, lots of sleepless nights for me thinking about this, debating with myself about it. So, like if you struggle with art block, that brings up the question, do I love art? And if you've ever compared yourself to another artist who seemed to just like can't stay away from a pencil or paper, like they are just attached to their stylus, whereas we struggle to even draw once a day. And that definitely brings it up. And then sometimes maybe you'll even come across somebody who objectively you believe is like at a lower skill level than you, but they are just finding so much more success. And it seems to be attributed to, again, like their deep love for it. Like, and that's why they're so prolific and sharing online so much and just drawing so often. So again, damn, like maybe you really don't love it, right? So then like you might ask them for advice. Like we would ask these people like, hey, like how is it that you're able to be so just like gusto about going for art? And then again though, they'll just kind of say, I just really love it. And unfortunately, some might even suggest maybe you don't love it all that much. I mean, like people always say, like you have to be really hungry, right? Like you have to really want it, and that all comes from this like really deep well of love for the craft, and it really makes you doubt yourself. Like for me, it's like it's I feel like I want it, but yet my actions aren't really reflecting in that feeling. So like maybe I don't really love it. So I get it. If this sounds like you at all, or if you've ever entertained this question and like entertained these thoughts, I really get it. I've been here. I mean, I've taken so many hiatuses because I'm just like, wow, I just don't compare. Like it just doesn't seem like I love it all that much. So if you're thinking these things, I am here to offer you two other possibilities that I would love for you to consider. The first possibility, your brain is bullshitting you. It's trying to keep you in the safe cave, right? Like back in the beginning stages of our human existence, our brain's job was to keep us safe and pretty much to stay in the cave as much as we can. It just doesn't want you to do anything at all that might result in your death. And failure, embarrassment, shame, all of that stuff equates to death, right? So, and that part of your brain is pretty much called like the reptilian brain. It gives a shit about nothing else but your survival, okay? Like it's trying to trick you into just believing that there's something wrong here. So it's essentially, this brain is trying to make you think that people who seem to be making artwork so easily, like it's just flowing out of them with such ease, that these people, they're not experiencing any doubt, they're not experiencing any fear or frustration or anger or failures. That they just have this like shining bright beacon inside of their soul that we just don't have. And that's what's propelling them forward. Because on the other hand, for us, like we're totally filled with doubt and crippled by fear. So that must mean something's wrong with us. Like something is missing in us. So we must not love it, and maybe we're just not meant to be artists. Consider this instead, okay? What if those people who are creating art so easily actually feel just as much doubt, just as much fear and frustration and anger and failure and disappointment, but they've just gotten really, really good at moving past those crappy feelings? Like their brains, whether it's because they got lucky with genetics or lucky with parenting, they were just able to focus a lot more on the fun that they have when they're learning to draw, when they're learning how to draw a hand or painting a face, instead of focusing on all the like horrible things that could happen if they made a bad drawing. The ridicule, the angry look on the teacher's face, the bad grade. So just consider that, okay? And then possibility number 2, when things come easily to people, they may not always be the best teachers. Like most of these people that we're talking about, I have a theory, are not like aware that this is how their brain works. And so when we ask for help or for advice, we usually just, all they can say is, well, I just love it, right? Like that's just me. Which then we might assume or conclude that then that means we don't love it. Have you ever been in a car with somebody who's just learning how to drive? Like they're driving really slow, like 5 miles an hour, and you're feeling a little bit frustrated. Like for me, for sure, because I have very little patience. And they're driving really slow and they're using their blinkers very like nervously. They're checking the mirror like 10 times, and you're like, dude, oh my God, just please go faster. Like nothing is gonna happen, just go. And you're like that because you're an expert now at driving. You've completely forgotten the struggle. Like you forgot how scary it was and how much you actually had to overcome those fears of like crashing into another car when you're switching lanes. You had to have gotten really good at like overcoming that fear before your brain is kind of just like, oh yeah, like, no, I'm not going to crash into a car so easily, so I can do this quicker. That's pretty much the same thing if you think about it. It's like some people just have either never struggled, so they won't even know how to communicate how to overcome something, or they've forgotten the struggle. So, they are now an expert. They don't know what it was like anymore. And oftentimes, those kind of people aren't usually the best teachers. I'm thinking a lot about my one professor who was super, oh my God, he was an incredible professor. An incredible artist. And, he worked for Disney, amazing backgrounds. His figure drawings were insane. But we had a lot of trouble learning from him as a class. We, during figure drawing class, he was very eccentric, like he had some interesting tics, but also he would just oftentimes just draw on his own. In other figure drawing classes, we had professors who would walk around. They would draw sometimes, but oftentimes they would walk around, look at what we were doing, give us feedback, all this kind of stuff. Whereas he was hungry to draw. Like, you could tell this man was so passionate about art that he could not draw during class. And that's very inspirational, but it was also very difficult to learn from him. And anytime that we did ask for feedback or like tried to get some concepts out, he had a very difficult time explaining his thoughts and communicating how to go from a beginner to an intermediate. And also, he was great. Like, for example, he was also, like, in figure drawing, we would learn in school that you should build on top of a drawing. So like start out with very simple shapes and then add more and more details as time goes on. But start out with like the most simple shapes. He was not doing that. He was like, he goes straight in and he was putting details all in the right places. And like, if we would gather around and watch him draw, we would be like, what the fuck? How did he do that? Like, he's breaking all the rules. His brain just seems to work in a totally different way. And when we ask like how he did that, it was definitely difficult. However, like, he was such a brilliant painter. And when he would do paint overs for us on top of our own paintings, like he was able to, I was able to learn a lot more that way. I think a lot of us did too, because he just communicated visually so much better. Like, he just did a better painting on top of your painting, and you could learn from that. But in terms of like communicating and talking about these concepts, it was just very difficult. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that he just really didn't struggle with it. Like, he was just on it, and so, like, it's easy to see that and then think like there's something wrong with us, like, but oftentimes there's nothing wrong with us. I would almost say all the time, there isn't anything wrong with us. Some people are just not that good teachers, and that's okay, right? Like, that's not what they're meant to do, maybe. But I want to like compare this to the idea of like, this whole asking a question of like, do you love art or not? Well, I want to ask the question then, like, let's imagine a mother who is really depressed and she stays in bed all day. She's not waking up to cook for her children. She's struggling in life, versus a mother who is totally, on top of it. She's packing lunches, she's doing this, she's driving them to school. Who loves their child more? I personally say that no one can seriously judge that. Like, no one can actually like tap into the minds of these different people and say, oh, yep, this one loves her child more, this one doesn't. And I personally definitely do not believe that a depressed mother loves her child any less. I just think that she was not taught the proper brain skills to actually care for a child, but I don't believe that her love is any less. So with that, like, personally, I think you get to choose whether you love art or not. I don't think you should let somebody define whether you love art or not. And let is the key word here, because someone might say, this is unfortunate, but if someone really wants to like say it to your face, oh, you don't love art, it's still your responsibility, because you let them by believing them. Meaning that even before they came up to you and said anything, a part of you already believed and was a bit defeated that you must have not loved it very much, or you're a bad artist. So you then have to take responsibility about that belief in the first place and decide whether you want to change that belief or not. So yeah, I think that if you ever had an inclination to put your hand to a pencil and to paper and you want to create something, I mean, that's enough for me to say that you love art. So I hope you will make your own decision and define it yourself. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in another video. Bye.